All right, welcome back, everybody. Angelos is going to take the wheel. Take it away, Angelo.
Thank you, Dan. And now we will continue with session 3 and marine research projects that are currently being implemented in Cyprus through the Research Innovation Foundation. We will begin with project team, and we have together with us Dr. Michaelides from the Cyprus University of Technology and the project coordinator of the project.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I will be presenting the STEAM project, which is an acronym for Sea Traffic Management in the Eastern Mediterranean. Here is some information about the project. It started on the 2nd of January in 2019, and its duration is 3 years. So now we're moving into the last year of the project already. We were able to obtain close to €1 million, and this funding came from the European Regional Development Fund through the Research Innovation Foundation. And the main idea of STEAM is to develop the port of Limassol in order to become a world-class transshipment and information hub by adapting modern digital technologies brought to the maritime sector, as well as a driver for short sea shipping in the Eastern Mediterranean area. So this general objective, it has to do, as I said, with the efficient management of traffic, while at the same time ensuring safety and environmental sustainability. And this will be achieved through 5 objectives. The first one is to improve the efficiency of the various port operations and services, mainly at the port of Limassol, but also at all the other ports of Cyprus. The second one is to optimize the sea traffic navigation and facilitate short sea shipping in the general area of the Eastern Mediterranean. The third has to do with collecting real-time information, and this is related to ship movements, to the environment, and also the tracking of cargo. The fourth has to do with advanced data analytics, as well as creating new business decision support tools for the maritime stakeholders. And the fifth one has to do with developing effective links and synergies among all the interested maritime stakeholders. And this is in line also with the CMMI goals presented earlier today by Zacharias. As far as the consortium, we were able to build a really powerful consortium of established stakeholders coming from the Quadruple Helix, and this includes universities and research foundations like the Cyprus University of Technology and the research institutes in Sweden. We have the Cyprus Ports Authority, as well as the Cyprus Shipping Association on board. And we have some really important private enterprises like Subsea, Televant, and Dototheo. We also have an associated stakeholder network that comes from established stakeholders, mainly who do business in the port of Limassol. And this is the private stakeholders that took over the business after the privatization. This is DP World Limassol, that is responsible for the cruise and general cargo terminal, Eurogate, who has the container terminal, and P&O, who is handling all the services related to pilots, tugboats, and lightsmen. Also, as part of the associate stakeholders, we have the Cyprus Shipping Chamber and Marina. And we also have a very international advisory group coming from people that we have met mainly through our previous involvement in the sea traffic management project, which I will talk about in a minute. So the inspiration behind the STEAM project came from another European project, the STM validation, sea traffic management validation, which was a very big European project with 43 million euros, over 50 partners. It was between 2015 and 2018. And inside this project, there was large efforts to improve the sea traffic management in the European area. And part of this project was also a number of ports participating, one of which was the port of Limassol that participated in the project through the Cyprus University of Technology. The main idea here was to validate a platform, a port collaborative decision-making platform. We call it Port CTM, which provides real-time information exchange between all the related stakeholders. And this has to do with the procedure of a ship arriving and departing from the port of Limassol. So through this platform, all the related actors can get real-time synchronized information and exchange information in order to improve the efficiency of the process. Also, as part of this project, we had a number of voyage management services that we provided to ships in the area to improve their planning and also to improve their voyage in terms of safety, in terms of efficiency, and so forth. So based on this project, the idea came that we could also do something on a local level. And so we were able to get STEAM approved about improving the sea traffic management in the Eastern Mediterranean area. So here are again the 5 basic scientific and technological objectives of the STEAM project. And for each of these, I'm going to present the major action that is done in the project. So for the first one, we are going to use the port collaborative decision-making platform that I talked before. We're going to enhance this platform. We're going to take it to the commercial level, basically. And we're also going to implement involve all the other ports of Cyprus on this same platform and build additional services for the stakeholders. For the second one, we will be establishing the Limassol Shore Center, and these services will be primarily provided through the VTS at the port of Limassol, the VTS operators, but there are also going to be some services that are provided by Tototheo, which is the company that we're collaborating with. It's one of the stakeholders of the project. For the third one, we're going to have innovative technological solutions, and this includes a number of things. It includes, for example, collecting all the AIS information from the ships in the area and building a ship tracking intelligence platform that follows what is going on based on this information. It also includes a number of environmental monitoring solutions like buoys with a number of sensors that will be installed in the area. Also some oil detection sensors in the area of the port. Also some air quality sensors that are already installed, and we're collecting a lot of measurements related to air pollution and various other things. For the fourth one, we will be providing advanced data analytics services to maritime stakeholders. And this data analytics comes from combining all this information that I mentioned before, from all the different sensors and all the different sources into meaningful information and services that will be used by the maritime stakeholders. And for the fifth one, we have a number of living labs that we are organizing with all the stakeholders at the port of Limassol and also all other related stakeholders from the Cyprus maritime industry in order to evaluate all the solutions and in order to create new solutions and to build better synergies. This is the technical implementation plan, and what I discussed before is summarized into 4 technical work packages, which I will briefly mention in the sequel. So I have a slide for each, basically. This is the third work package that has to do with the port collaborative decision-making platform. And the idea here is to improve the real-time situation awareness of all the participants involved in the maritime activities that have to do with optimizing the port operations and enabling this collaborative decision-making between the essential parties. The second one, it has to do with providing all the Limassol, setting up the Limassol Shore Center and providing services in the Eastern Mediterranean area. And a big part of that has to do with also facilitating short sea shipping in the area. So there is specific tasks for that. As far as the new technologies, we have here the AIS data collection and integration. As a second task, the environmental data that I mentioned, coming from buoys, coming from sensors, possibly from UAVs. This is something else that we are testing. And the third one has to do with real-time tracking of the cargo. In the next work package that has to do with data analytics, we integrate all this data into a common platform, and then we apply data mining, we apply data analytics to this data in order to build useful tools that will be used for decision making. And the living labs, as I mentioned, has to do with bringing all the actors together, evaluating the results, and also collecting experiences and building synergies. As far as the impact of the project, we focus on 3 areas. This is efficiency, safety, environmental sustainability. We also envision various political, social, and economic impacts coming from the project, and the proposed solution will also contribute to the blue economy, of course. And there is a long-lasting impact on all participating organizations, but all other involved actors as well. And the long-lasting outcome of the project, we envision the creation of a maritime innovation hub, but this probably fits into one of the CMMI goals, and so it can be merged together with some other things. Maybe some of the ideas that will be presented by Ioannis afterwards as well in the other projects. So to conclude, this is in summary the vision of the STEAM project. We want to upgrade the maritime significance of Cyprus, and especially through upgrading the services at the ports. And so we have these 5 major objectives: improving the efficiency of the port operations through extending the port CDM, optimizing the sea traffic navigation in the area and the short sea shipping through the Limassol Shore Center, collecting real-time information related to ship movements, environment, and the tracking of cargo, ensuring high-quality data, KPIs, and new data, decision support tools and analytics, and building efficient synergies among all the involved stakeholders.
Definitely, all this information will assist in enhancing all the sectors, especially port operations in Cyprus, but also some other sectors that may use this data gathered through the platform.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we have a question from something from the participants. Do you want to ask something now?
Yes, hi, thank you. Thanks, Michalis. A very interesting project. Have you considered, this is my question, have you considered using or trying to implement this data management using VTS in the fisheries sector? And I'm not talking about the polyvalent, the large vessels, because that's already being used, but with small-scale fisheries. I'm going to present something tomorrow about a project we have with respect to the effect of fisheries on some vulnerable species, but we've been discussing also within our consortium that potential use of VTS system on small-scale fisheries would have a lot of a lot of uses for us. So yeah, the benefits will be huge for both efficiency, safety also for with regards to traffic, but mostly for environmental sustainability.
Yeah, thank you, Louis, for this question. And we are considering smaller boats like fishing boats and yachts in the AIS observation platform that we're building. And our system is capable of integrating messages from these smaller AIS transponders called Class B that are dedicated for smaller ships like fisher boats or yachts or any other type of smaller pleasure type of vessel. And so it's a matter of just installing those transponders on the fishing boats, and we would be in a position to automatically provide information on their positions and also other useful information related to their to tracking the specific vessels. So yes, I mean the platform is able to handle this. And it's actually something that we're also considering with Ioannis for the Marisense project as one of the case studies that we're going to be investigating. And we're thinking of installing these smaller AIS transponders on a smaller boat to see if we are able to provide warnings through our AIS intelligent tracking platform.
Thank you, Michalis. In case you're interested in synergies, we are already networking with fishermen, and would be great if we could perhaps do a pilot study together. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Yes.
Okay. Good morning to everybody. I'm Konstantinos Antoniadis from the Department of Fisheries and Marine Research of Cyprus. I would like to inform you that our department is responsible for the implementation of the Marine Strategy Framework Directive of the European Union, and also about the integrated monitoring and assessment program of the Barcelona Convention. So it was I was very happy to hear from Dr. Michaelides that this project has started, because it seems very interesting, and it could be useful for our scope. Especially the part of the part 3, the goal, the deliverable 3. I don't know how to call it, which is about collecting information about environment, environmental parameters, and AIS as well. I want to say that we are very interested in this project as it is. I didn't know about this project till now, so it was a very good opportunity to learn about it. So I would like to ask to have some more information. Like you said that you are going to deploy buoys with sensors. So which areas have you defined for the buoys, or maybe if you haven't defined any areas yet, it would be a good opportunity to have some kind of collaboration to set some areas of interest, let's say. And what kind of sensors are you going to use? You said something about the UAVs, that there is a possibility of using them. These are exactly what we are interested in. And the other question is, the buoys that you are going to deploy, are they going to stay there for more, or you are going to remove them when the project is finalized? So just these questions for the beginning. And of course, we are very interested in having some meeting, let's say, or online meeting with the stakeholders of the project to see if we can have any more synergies about this project or even broader. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Constantino. I think I missed part of what you said because there was some instantaneous drop of my system, and then it came back. But from what I was able to hear, and if I missed something, I will let the others reply as well. Of course, we're interested in synergies, and the data that we will be collecting from the buoys. We will have two platforms installed. In the one, it will be in front of the Limassol Nautical Club in the area over there. And the second one will be on the other side of the anchorage area, near the port. And as far as the sensors that will go on these platforms, Dan, oh, thank you. This is good. Okay, I will let somebody else describe the sensors then, because I'm not even in a position to tell which sensors will be installed at the moment. Dan and Gerald will know more about this.
Sorry. Yeah. So you saw the map. Should I bring it back or? Sorry, I lost my screen. The sensors. We are. Okay. First of all, the buoys just arrived while we had the meeting, so they're downstairs.
Oh.
And they will have basic sensors on them, like temperature, salinity, dissolved oxygen on one of them, chlorophyll fluorescence on both. And there's one of them will have a hydrocarbon sensor, like pollution, oil and water sensor. Also, you'll see the numbers 1 and 2 here on the map. That's an oil spill you're seeing in the circle. Those two sensors are going to be been received, and we'll have them fixed on land, pointing downward, looking for oil slicks in those two positions. Hopefully, those will have a real-time alarm system. So we can send that to whichever stakeholders, obviously the authorities in the port, for one, they would like to have that alarm. And the other buoys should have some real-time data as well. I think the bigger question then is when and for how long. So this is supposed to happen this spring, I think, right? And the project ends a year from now, essentially, right? So just over a year from now. So that leaves them in the water, let's say 9 months. But there's a number of parties interested in these buoys and the data, and there are other buoys and other projects. So I think we really have to sit down and look at how we can maintain this going forward. Also know CMMI is interested. We have OS Aqua, which Ioannis will talk about, and Marisense, which Ioannis will talk about. And so that's possibly up for debate.
Possibly some of the companies at the port also, Dan, would be interested in maintaining, especially the oil detection sensors, I would think.
Yeah. So does that answer the question? It doesn't give you the full answer, but it's something that we'd like to discuss with you. I think if I could speak on behalf of Michalis, but from what I can see, there's a lot of commonality here.
I agree with you. Okay, the positions of the buoys are, I would think they are a good position. What I would suggest is that if your power, let's say the batteries of the buoys are enough to host any current meters or even hydrophones, because it would be very interesting to measure the marine noise because of all this ship traffic in the area there.
Yes. Okay.
I think Ioannis is already. Oh, yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
Dan.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was gonna move the floor to Ioannis to talk about the hydrophones, because that's part of another project. And Ioannis is also gonna be using those platforms, those buoys. Yeah.
So maybe we could go to that talk, because we're gonna have to move, and Ioannis can answer that question in the process. Is that okay?
That's okay with me.
Yes, I think we can continue. We have a quick question for you, Michalis, from Rana. If you have any successful, any tips for a successful engagement of the stakeholders during the implementation of the project?
For the STEAM project in particular?
Yes, I suppose.
Talk to me. It's if you want to be engaged in the project, send me an email. I mean, we're open to synergies, and of course, it's one of the goals of the project to bring together people from the Cyprus maritime industry and develop some solutions that can also be used in the international sector. So we're not just building solutions for Cyprus, but the tools we're actually implementing here can be used in the international maritime sector as well, some of the tools and services. So just send me an email. We're always looking for new additions to the STEAM family.
Thank you, Michalis. I think we can now move to Dan.
Good. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some European projects. We had to switch the session up a bit. Originally, we were going to talk about another Research Innovation Foundation project, but that will be tomorrow. So sorry if you tuned in for that. That's a smart cable talk given by Ehsan Abdi. So we moved my talk to today, and I'll be talking about strategies in Europe for ocean observing. And both of these are very, very new projects, just started last month. So one of them we haven't even had kickoff meeting yet, but I wanted to give you an idea of where, if you follow the money, where Europe is going and what are they funding and why would that be? So these are a couple of examples. Just two quick slides about us. We're Cyprus Subsea, small company here in Nicosia. Most of you know us doing oceanography, ocean engineering, lots of data collection, oceanography, electronics. We can do environmental and acoustic monitoring with autonomous platforms. We can provide equipment or training. And there's some examples there about the real-time awareness of an ecosystem or the physical system, currents and waves, tracking of plumes and predictions of the ocean conditions. And we work outside Cyprus. This is not Cyprus. This is Norwegian Sea. But just to summarize, our company is broken into 3 bits. So we have like a services side, an R&D side, an equipment side. And today I'm talking about the R&D side, so the research projects. And there's some specific expertise that we have, but the ones relevant to these projects are in yellow. So integrating sensors and platforms, in many cases gliders, which you'll see in a minute. Implementing standards for ocean data, and designing a research infrastructure. Again, this is about gliders. So to start off, this is one of the projects. It's a Blue Growth project under Horizon 2020. It's coordinated by the National Oceanographic Center in the UK. It's called Tech Oceans. And it's a fairly large project. Here are all the partners. It's driven by 2 primary well, I would say three topics. One is ocean observing. So there are these things called the essential ocean variables, which are identified in this global ocean observing system documentation. There's a new strategy out. This is an international effort to make, to sort of, not standardize, but unify people's approach and what needs to be measured and how, and be able to compare these data all together, even if they come from opposite sides of the globe. So these are the lists. So physics, things like currents, biogeochemistry, nutrients, oxygen, things like that, and then biology and ecosystems. So this project is skipping all the physics because that's something people consider more or less done, or at least it's doable, and focusing on innovative or new ways to try to measure these things, which are quite difficult to measure without a ship or without physical samples and so on. It's also driven by the real management of the ocean, and that would be in Europe, the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, which Konstantinos mentioned. So there's these different aspects, and the ones in the green circles are addressed by this project. So it's almost everything. And you'll see why in a minute. It's a very expensive project, and our Cyprus Subsea, our part is quite small. And I would say, we're not experts in any of those, but we are experts in being able to bring all that together onto a platform, put it in the ocean, and then get the data back out to a wide range of people in a standard way. So that's a kind of a cross-cutting role. The third, which doesn't have a slide, is more the industry. So the offshore industry would also be able to use this information, for their environmental baseline studies, their monitoring. This is a 4-year project. So there's 13 partners in 8 countries. Like I said, just started. I won't go through the objectives, but essentially the idea is to get new sensors that are small, low power, on autonomous platforms. So hopefully multiple sensors, even on a single platform, if they can be made small enough and at low enough power. There's also aspects about AI and trying to get that data back to shore, even though it's big, doing some processing to get it small enough to send through a satellite is another part of it. And then a big part is this sharing of all this information, the sensors themselves, the platforms themselves. This, for me, is very complicated. Some of you may be familiar with this, but these are the kind of things that they're trying to observe. So this is a model of the biogeochemical system, the ecosystem, and there are equations that people have written into models which describe how all these change and relate to each other. And this project will try to measure some of these things to pin down these models to give you something realistic. Because of course you could run this with information, but how realistic is it? You don't know if you don't have a real data set to compare or to constrain it with. So things like bacteria and nitrate levels, inorganic carbon, things like that. Those are things being measured with these new platforms and new sensors. And this slide lists the essential ocean variables, not the physical ones, the ones on this project, and then the sensors. So just look at the columns for now. There's like 7 types of sensors here. They're all low TRL, like technical readiness level. They're all on the verge of being something that could be commercialized. They're going to be tested and installed on platforms in this project. So basically doing wet lab chemistry on a chip on a vehicle in the open ocean, hundreds of miles away, and sending the data back. And these address certain of those parameters. So I won't go into detail about those sensors. We are not directly involved with the sensors themselves, but like I said, getting those to work on the glider or whatever it is, and getting the data back is our role, which is these particular work packages, cross-cutting. It's a relatively small part of it, but it is important because without that, these data would not necessarily be kept for the long term and be able to be reused by a few people in the future with a known quality and a known, you know, calibration and known history. Oh, sorry, this didn't work out. The other project is about research infrastructure, and this is something I've been doing for a long time. This project is called GROOM2 or GROOM II. It's not shown here. Gliders for research, ocean observation, and management. There was a GROOM1. We've extended that with these two I's, infrastructure and innovation. It also just started. These are the partners. The idea is that we will try to make the case for a European-wide research infrastructure based on gliders. And if you don't know what a glider is, that's how it looks like when it's taken apart. Normally it's all put together and it looks like a pink torpedo. Don't worry, it's not really dangerous. If you're not sure how it works, just 1 minute, it's sinking and rising like this. And every time it comes to the surface, it's sending you messages and getting instructions to go to the next position or measure the next parameter. And it's doing that by deflating this bladder and inflating this bladder and moving its battery back and forth to change the angle at the same time. It moves pretty slowly, but during that whole time, it's measuring things. So in this case, temperature, salinity, oxygen, fluorescence, backscatter, and then you get the average current as well through this cycle, and can go for months like that. So, you know, there are 2 of these in Cyprus. We've done missions at the University of Cyprus like this. This could take up to 6 months. We've found some interesting features. In this project, the idea is there's a lot of countries, a lot of regions that have this capability, and they tend to work in the past in their own way, with their own websites, their own, you know, data processing, their own, you know, best practices, everything. And it's hard to build up a team to do that from scratch and not rely on anybody else. So there's been an effort in Europe to work together to do that. And we're trying to make that an official thing, which can be funded by the European Commission, but also by the member states to maintain that, so that we can have a plan on doing this sort of thing all around Europe on a regular basis. Up to now, it's based on research funding. So if you get a project, you have a little money to do this, and then the money runs out, and then you don't have any data for months or years. Even though it's quite inexpensive compared to most methods, it still costs money, and it's difficult to maintain without a steady stream of funding. This is how, you know, gliders are a part of a bigger effort to observe the ocean, GOOSE, or the Global Ocean Observing System. And those have other aspects: moorings, buoys, satellites, ships, floats. And they all address similar issues that I talked about in the previous project. So measuring those parameters, a lot of these are physical parameters because the sensors aren't really available yet for the biogeochemistry and the biology. But you can see from the letters of support what's driving this project. I mean, we have all the big infrastructures. So this fixed, the floats, the ships, the marine stations, coastal stations, the international efforts, GOOSE and IOC, national stakeholders such as Dfmr and other countries, and industrial partners. So it's definitely something, like Paul mentioned earlier, that we could build up, scale up in the future. And the idea is to provide this system to provide services, not just to the authorities and to scientists, but in this project, we'll try to make the case that we can also provide services for industry, and we can provide innovation support so that new products and new services can be developed if we give access to this infrastructure. And but it's going to require each center to do a part of it, and not everybody do everything. So that's the idea of of the GRIM 1 was, we have a bunch of centers, and some of them do the data, some of them do the mission planning, some people do the hardware, but not everybody does everything. But it's more efficient that way. I think I'll skip ahead in just of time. We are involved basically in that package about the services there. A little bit about the technical practices and how this system can be improved to work better, to do more things. And a little bit about how to sustain that through long-term funding by meeting the needs, for example, of the Eurogoose or the MSFD. So I think I can skip those. Are just the deliverables that we're going for in those three sectors. And now for some examples of what are the services that we would like to promote, especially when you get into new kinds of sensors, not just the temperature and the salinity and oxygen, like these profiles shown here. New sensors that can help you learn more about the mammals, the zooplankton, the fish, even seeps of gas. That would include this active sonar. We call it a echo sounder. Something seems to be missing here, but the idea is that this echo sounder is mounted on the glider, and as the glider flies down, that thing is pointing down and scanning the ocean, and gives you this sort of a image, this blue image, and it gives you a return when you have particles in the water. So these would be clouds of zooplankton, for example, or even schools of fish. You have to be kind of an expert to interpret this. You also can sense the seafloor and gas bubbles with that. Gliders, we've also used gliders with hydrophones, so we can detect the echoes, the echo sounding, the active echolocations of marine mammals at the same time. That's this device here. The echo sounder is this device here, this electronics, and a small transducer sticking out the bottom. So that's a very prototype kind of device, but there's a lot of value if you're in the sector of fisheries or even oil and gas, perhaps, if you're interested in managing the marine mammal ecosystem with marine mammals present. That's just a picture of the same device. Here's the transducer sticking out, and this is inside the glider, actually. So that's unusual because ships normally do carry these devices. Looking at from the bottom of the ship down, maybe 100 meters, and they look for, fish or plankton. But in this case, the device is traveling to 1,000 meters and measuring in a window, 50 meters below the whole way. So you have data much deeper without disturbing the environment or making lots of noise. We've done this work with hydrophones, so it requires some modification. One of the ways we can help do this modification and at the same time provide data that are standardized is by using this cable, which Asan will talk about tomorrow. We've developed a device to do a lot of that work of trying to connect the two things together, the platform and the sensor, into the cable itself. And because there's some storage and processing on there, we can apply some standards so that the data come out in a way that can be easily fed into all these databases with almost no effort. This is an example of using that on a wave glider. It's just in there somewhere, and then you end up, this website in the background shows you the data just pop up on the screen once you put in the address of the server that you're using. And that's something that's used around Europe as a standard way to share data. So just to conclude, what do we see in all these projects? They seem to be that the way of the future, at least for now, is pointing towards autonomous, non-ship ocean observing systems, and not just temperature, but more complex variables. The idea also is to develop new low-cost and mass deployable sensor technologies that you can look at those new variables, parameters like biogeochemical and biology. making the sensors smaller and more power efficient, so you can put more of them out there even on the same platform. These projects all aim to encourage sharing of sensors, platforms, and data. So it's sort of, I would say, the death knell to the old idea of hold on to your data until it's published 10 years later. It's time to start opening up and realizing that there's a lot of value to everybody by doing that. And all of these are driven by the socioeconomic impact. None of these are pure research projects. We're all thinking about the ocean climate, ocean health, ecosystem health, the resource management, and also trying to develop new methods and products, services that are based on this paradigm of open data, so we can create economic growth and new jobs and so on. So with that, thanks. Probably I took too long, but if there's more questions, we can catch up with me later. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dan. I think we can proceed directly to Ioannis and then come back for questions because we're a bit out of time. So Ioannis, the floor is yours. Ioannis is the coordinator of the Maritime project. We'll hear more about that.
So I will be very brief, so I will allow for this one for the next project, Aqua also. So the first project that I will present is Maritime, a maritime cognitive decision support system. This project is co-financed with €1 million by the European Regional Development Fund and the Republic of Cyprus through the RIF. This is an integrated project, bringing together different members of the quadruple helix. So the need, of course, those who are familiar with the maritime environment are familiar with all this. So I will briefly mention that we need to know what is happening in the maritime environment in order to identify and monitor the natural environment and measure the impact of the human activity so that we can actually do something about it. There's a lot of tourism activity, a lot of pressure on the maritime environment due to that. Transportation and shipping also very important to Cyprus, but a lot of work here to be done in decarbonization, search and rescue, health and safety of the crew, and so on. There are a lot of other things happening in the maritime environment. We have critical infrastructure, unfortunate events due to irregular migration and people losing their lives at sea. We have also a lot of other things that we'd like to do, such as Openc Aquaculture that we'll talk about later, and energy, how to optimize energy generation and also plan, of course, zones for these renewable energy resources. So all these things are happening in the sea, and to understand what is happening, to do things efficiently, we collect a lot of data in a very large environment. And the maritime environment is especially complex and changing. And current data collection and processing methods do not scale. We have energy scarcity in the maritime environment, lack of connectivity. And even with these amazing devices that Dan was talking about, we cannot cover the whole environment at once. So we need to be smart at planning where to place those devices, and if they're moving, how to do path planning. And also, if we do collect all the data that we need in a smart way, how do we make informed decisions? How do we bring this to a human operator so that the experts can make the informed decisions that they need? And based on all these needs, that is why we propose Marisense, which is a cognitive decision support system that is essential to entities that need to make sense of the maritime environment. So within the project, we'll bring all the capabilities that we have in Cyprus that are now fragmented into under a common vision in order to create Maricodes, a suite of software that brings intelligence to how we process data and how do we collect the data. We will also provide a maritime laboratory that is an extended laboratory that Dan is leading, and I will mention it later. I'm not sure about the Hydrophones and all that, but many bigger aspects of this are happening through the CMMI. And also we have Marina, a strategic partnership between the members of the quadruple helix, bringing all the different capabilities that we have available in Cyprus, talking together, creating, identifying needs, and creating new products and services also through MariHub, an innovation hub. Again, as Michalis mentioned before, we need to join all this effort between all the projects trying to do innovation, also with the CMI, and the CMI is also connecting with other entities that are doing their own efforts. So we would like to hear from you if you have any ideas and for intelligent systems for the maritime sector, and you would like to promote them. Talk to us, and we will connect you to these bigger efforts that are being done on a Cypriot level first, and then we will connect to the global level. Specifically for Maritime, we're talking about intelligent systems, cyber-physical systems that find applicability in three main pillars: maritime activity planning, for example, for tourist activities, emergency response and planning, and also intelligent maritime spatial planning. So the idea is based on developing methods for data fusion from all these different types of data, hydrophones, the ones that Dan mentioned before, images, AIS, and all this. How do we fuse all that data and get the common operational picture? And also, how do we coordinate these intelligent assets, including the human element here, in order to work towards a common goal and improve situational awareness? And we have just an illustrated example from a previous project that I was working on with Dan, the Bridges project. We did path planning for underwater gliders in this complex maritime environment. Also, we have capability to create intelligent methods for target tracking at sea. Go back and play this video, if you can see it. So target tracking, for example, understanding what is happening in the maritime area, if something is moving towards a marine protected area, and this is wouldn't be allowed, and so on, collision avoidance and all that. We're having a lot of applications in mind, and you can contact me later to talk about those. And just to mention briefly the consortium, we have a very large consortium of 5 academic and research institutions. We have 6 enterprises. We have 2 representatives of the industry and public, and we have also the government together with us, the Ministry of Defense supporting our efforts. And I will talk very briefly about the software. Cognitive fusion is what I mentioned before, data fusion and heterogeneous asset coordination. Cognitive optimization, understanding how to optimize activities in the maritime environment and how to intelligently collect data that will help us in our efforts. Swarm intelligent methods, and here you see the partners also that are leading these tasks. Tactical decision making for an agile response when you have many assets, either moving or sensing assets or processing assets and so on. Data-driven modeling. We have a visualization pipeline that will bring all the information to a human user and improve understanding for making informed decisions. We have interoperability between all the systems through a common platform and data fusion center. And we have the important aspect of GIS, where we organize this onto a common platform, this spatial information that we have also for informing the human users in order to make decisions. So the Maritime Laboratory, to answer the previous questions, we have some hydrophones that we will deploy. Some of them we will use experimentally in order to create what we call hydrophone IoTs, or in general maritime IoTs. Some of them will be placed more strategically to create, to collect some data based on hearing from the feedback of stakeholders, such as the Department of Fisheries, of course. We have talked to them, and we will talk more in order to identify these areas, and a lot of more effort also. Dan can answer more of your questions because he's planning to deploy sensors all over Cyprus, and this will be done in an educated manner by talking to all the stakeholders. So please talk to us if you need hydrophones to be placed in specific areas. and we'll be ready to do that. And so this is a maritime laboratory that will also allow some new innovators to come and connect to our systems. For example, the EIS platform that Michalis has mentioned before. So we provide connectivity or any kind of support, mentoring that to accelerate the development of your systems and eventually take them to the market. So this is a goal that we will have. The strategic partnership, again, members of the quadruple helix, as I have mentioned, and very briefly, again, the innovation hub that I have said enough about, so I will save time. You can contact me about this later. And we will have some scenarios that are validation of pilots, and we will add more to them based on your participations. We invite everybody to provide ideas for scenarios and also work with us to develop even more live exercises. For example, in the area of tourism, we have also emergency response and planning. We would like to participate with different government entities on real exercises that are happening and show quantify improvement in response time and accuracy with our intelligent systems. And also the important aspect of maritime spatial planning also in relation to the next project, Openc Aquaculture. And on our website, you will see, and you can contact me for more information, one experiment that we did for collecting data and many more to come as we go to the second year of this project. And I will switch to the next project, Openc Aquaculture. Until I switch slides, everybody feel free to answer questions if we do have time. Angelos, if we don't, I will go immediately to the next.
I think we can take a couple of questions. We have time. We are. If anyone wants to ask something.
Hi, this is Luis Ioannis. Just wanted to comment and mention that in my talk tomorrow, there will be a lot of information about projects that are already running with respect to the marine environment ecosystems and on which Ioannis, many of these things could be applied. So looking forward to collaborating if possible.
Yes, definitely. Any information you need, Luis, we can talk later, and I can give you any information that you need to enrich your talk and also to hear about it and see what you're going to speak about. Okay, and a project that, of course, is connected to all the previous projects, things that we talked about in Marisense is Openc Aquaculture, another project. Again, co-financed by the European Regional Development Fund and the Republic of Cyprus. Again, an integrated project with the same aim to bring members of the quadruple helix and entities doing different things in a fragmented way in Cyprus and bring them together for a common goal. And the common goal here is to develop a new industry, the one of Openc Aquaculture. And why is this so different than what is happening now is that, of course, the motivation here is that we have a large area that we can utilize in Cyprus for developing, to cultivate and to bring food to the table, especially given that there's going to be a large need for seafood, and this need is rising, food in general, of course. So this has a broader goal. So Cyprus is ideal, as it has been mentioned before, that as it has also favorable conditions for aquaculture, including larger temperatures that facilitate the growth of the fish. And why Openc Aquaculture? It has been mentioned before very nicely that this is scales better. There's more space, but also the sea currents are stronger, so that they can these currents can drift away these nutrients or remaining deposits from Openc Aquaculture. So we can grow fish that is more in quantity, but in a more healthy and sustainable way, also with minimal impact to the maritime environment. And the problem here is that we're facing is that if we put this aquaculture into the open sea, then we lose the same line of sight. Things have to be automated so that we are able to feed the fish, that we monitor the installations, and monitor the environment surrounding the installations in an area that is out of line of sight, and no people can be there on a 24-hour basis potentially. And also this offers platforms for to be utilized for other purposes, such as for monitoring the maritime environment in general, and also putting some other sensors there to satisfy needs of other stakeholders. So we have challenges in how to do the maritime spatial planning, and this is why we need your help today to give us your input. We will propose, we will show a map basically. We're not going to propose anything, we're going to leave it open and allow you to talk about ideas that you have, or any conflicts that you see happening, because we need to create a new industry that is acceptable to all and is beneficial to all. We need to allocate some zones specifically for open sea aquaculture, and we need to ensure that there is no negative impact to the environment or any other activity that is happening. So this is what we would like to receive from you today, to help us provide a roadmap for establishing this new industry. And I will briefly mention the main aspects, and then give the floor to Stephanos to show you the platform and open this floor to discussion. So what we are doing here in this project is doing marine modeling, understanding the maritime environment really, and understanding the different conflicts that exist, and also how what are the sea currents, what are the natural environment conditions. And this directly goes to a discussion about marine spatial planning, where we can allow this development of open sea aquaculture facilities. And then the question here is next, how to design these facilities, and given the constraints that there are due to the sea currents, so structurally, how to design them, what is happening in other areas of the world, and this is what we need to hear from different countries, their experience, and also ensure the ongoing monitoring of these facilities on a structural level, ensuring their structural health, but also ongoing monitoring of the environment surrounding these facilities. And of course, this is linked to the financial and legal framework, because however scientifically and technologically we can progress, we won't be able to do anything unless we have these installations to be acceptable to all, profitable to all, and also be within a certain legal framework, and also financially profitable to the ones that will invest in these facilities. So there are many stakeholders here that you can identify, from stakeholders for people who are working in the maritime sector, maritime, and so on. And at this point, I want to hear from you. Of course, you can ask me about anything about this project individually, but I would like to allow time to hear from you. So anything that comes to mind, please let us know. And we will stimulate this discussion by providing a map when Stephanos is ready.
Hello, I'm Stephanos Charalambous. I am a GIS specialist for Geomatic Technologies. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about our involvement in the two very important maritime related projects. The one is the Maritime that Ioannis mentioned before, and the next one is the OS Aqua that aforementioned by Ioannis. So we're now trying to say is we will do the hands-on on practical thing of spatial planning. First of all, though, I will speak a little bit about our company, just a few slides. Our company started in Cyprus from since 2007. We already have our own software house in Greece, and we are try to be innovative in the GIS sector. So we provide advanced GIS solutions, and we provide web map services as well and APIs. We consider ourselves one of the largest cartographic company in GIS companies in Cyprus. And our reference points is the Geomatic Map service. We have an advanced cartographical database that we preserve, we update continuously since 2006, that has great appeal and great usability in Cyprus. Maybe you are familiar with Garmin navigators. We have our maps installed there. We have our online services, and we provide our expertise in our cartographic database to multitude of applications. We offer web services and APIs. We are and applications as well, like the Geomatic Maps applications, the feature manager. This is what we do. We provide maps, we provide services, and our latest accomplishment is to what we provide the Geomatic Web GIS platform, which is a single point GIS project platform with open source software. And this is where we step on and we continue providing our services to our customers into projects. So in our involvement in the OS Aqua is mainly in whatever is in any GIS related task and objective. So the first one that we're going to discuss today is the spatial planning of the Marina Aquaculture, which is the objective is to develop a national marine spatial plan to designate zones where we can of open sea aquaculture areas using input from the previous web package, of course, and utilizing previous work done by any other stakeholders like the Dfmr. So the first task of this project was to define the participatory analysis specifications and to identify the optimal sites for a marine aquaculture through participatory analysis. Yes, we need your advices, your opinions on how we can define the location where open sea aquaculture can be located. The second task is to create the OS Aqua GIS database, where we're going to design the GIS, we design the spatial database. We're going to review basically the most famous and open source GIS solutions for GIS and spatial databases, so we can choose the best for the project. Not only the OS Aqua for the Maritime as well. We're going to develop it and then test it and use it, of course. Then the last task of this work package was to describe the suitable zones for offshore aquaculture. I'm going to use the GIS tool and our GIS expertise to present the current and planned usage of the marine space from about 40 to 200 meter water depths that is decided that open sea aquaculture will be located. And we're going to prepare the appropriate maps, online, web maps, and paper maps, of course. So you got now a brief idea. Now we're gonna go hands-on on what we have done up to now. So we're gonna leave this. I'm gonna go to. So what we have done as a consortium, we made a lot of meetings discussing on what data we can use for decide what data and what factors are affecting the location of the aquaculture. So we have discussed, we have gathered some data from the DLS portal. We got all the hydrographic data, we have discussed it, and we have made a first decision of what data we might use. Of course, we need your opinion on something that we might forgot or something that we must take into account. We have also discussed previous studies that have been made for the aquaculture in Cyprus. For example, the one conducted by AP Marina in Atlantis 2016. We have gathered all those data as well. But of course, we have innovations in our study because we're focusing on open sea aquaculture, which is located in depths of between 50 to 200 meters. So we tried to identify the data that I'm going to show you now. And of course, any of your opinion is welcome. First of all, we gathered the data of Natura network. So I know you can see my cursor as well. Of course. Thank you. So we have the Natura network of Cyprus. We have this area close to the sea on the west side of Cyprus, southwest. So we take this into account. Then we start to see the sea shooting ranges. That is a thing that a thing that we have to discuss afterwards, how this is affecting indeed the aquaculture planning. As you can, I will display layers one by one, and then we can discuss it, of course. Then we go to Posidonia. We selected the Posidonia meadows. That, of course, is very close to the sea. I can zoom in here to see.
To the shore, yeah.
Yeah, it's very close to the shore. Thank you, Dan. Then we go to the port areas. That again, it's a thing that we need to discuss because they're covering a lot of the Sea of Cyprus, especially in the south part of Cyprus. We have the military material depot area. Sorry for this loading data, so that's why it freezes. We have the port facilities that is close to the shore, the swimming areas as well. The anchorage, you can see the different colors and you can see the legend for every layer that I'm turning on. We have the ship routes from the various ports of Cyprus. We have the pipes that are close to the shore. Now we go to the ports related data. We have the ports as well as the port works that they are licensed or in the license stage. Again, I'm switching on basically a lot of layers that we got from the DLS. We know that these data are going to be updated soon, so we are going to always keep in mind to update our data. Now, as we focused in the open sea aquaculture, we decided that we're going to work between the ISO depth of 50 to 200 meters. So as you can see, this is the black. I will make this is the black lines, the 50 and the 200 here. Moving on to the sewage disposal points that are close to the shore again. We have the shipwrecks that we have to preserve. We have the desalination stations that I guess they affect the nearby water, the quality of the water. We have the existing aquaculture farms where you're going to see. Let's go move a bit closer. We have it here. You see all these fish. Okay, moving back. we have the artificial reefs. And then we go to we have the airports. Okay, these are the data that we have gathered in the first step, the first stage. Of course, this will help us to define some key areas, and then we're going to a more detailed study. Along with this data, of course, we have some oceanographic data in terms of temperatures, waves, and current speed. I'm going to display it right now. First of all, we started doing now having this data. We started doing some tests, some spatial planning tests. First, we have applied some distance criteria just by, first of all, excluding some areas where we think that aquaculture is not preferable to be there or prohibited as well. So I'm flashing on to a new map here. So we have the ISO depth of 50 and 200 meters. So we are interested in this area. So applying some first distance criteria of all the data that I have mentioned, you can see the first stage, some areas that can be excluded or not is needed to be discussed. So if we put it on together in 2 layers, we have the first part, the areas that it's important that we take into account, and we're going to areas that are restricted, or it's how to say it. There is nothing to discuss about it at the first stage, but then we have the areas that we need to make a discussion with you, the stakeholders, which is these pink areas that involve the military material depot areas. That's why we have the question mark here. The sea shooting ranges and the port areas. All these 3 layers are forming these purple pink colors here that, of course, they cover a lot of the area that needs to be discussed, along with, just a minute to highlight this area here, which is the
the shooting range, or
range here.
Yeah.
So this is the early stage of the spatial planning process. We have the data. We need more data, of course. I will finish with displaying the oceanographic data here. So to discuss a little bit more. So as you can see here, I will flash the values as well. We see that we have the same temperature along the candidate area between the ISO depth of 15 to 100. Furthermore, we have the mean current speed here. So which is the vertical maps, which is the maximum speed over the depth at each point. As you can see from the light pink color, we meet speeds of 5 or 6 centimeters per second. So I guess, or we do not need to worry a lot about current speed so close to the coast. Then we have the mean wave period. So as you can see, sorry, I need to clarify this. We gather some data. From 2010 and up to 2015 or 17, we create with the help of the Oceanographic Center, of course, they provided the data. They calculated the mean values. So whatever else we needed, of course, we will have their help to provide us with more detailed, more data. And then when we focus to the candidate areas, we're going to further detail and get more accurate data. So in the mid-wave period, the difference of current shows our preferences to this area here. As you can see on this area here, the wave is more
A longer period, right? This
yes,
period.
longer,
So bigger, longer waves. Yeah.
of course. Yes, thank you, Dan. And in this area that looks like more preferable is it shows our preference to this coast of the southeast of Limassol and Larnaca. Moving on last to the mean wave height. And we have some discoloring here, so we need to be more. We need to make to study more to get more data here, so we can move on with this process and identify the candidate areas where we do more process. So this is what I needed to show you for the first key step of our spatial planning process for the OS Aqua. And we are ready, of course, to discuss along with my colleagues whatever question you might have or any comments or any feedback. So Dan, I give the speak.
Yeah. So George had a comment. He wants you to show. Okay, you've done that. And then, so while he's asking the question, I will activate Luis. A second. Go ahead, George, if you can have a comment or a
First of
question.
all, thank you very much for this impressive presentation. I think the amount of information is tremendous, and congratulations for this. I was wondering if you can project the potentially available areas that are free or in a safe distance from the existing activities, in order for our stakeholders to be able to see them in a better way. And a general question for our stakeholders is to what requirements or incentives they would expect from the European Commission or from the government in order to invest in offshore systems. Thank you.
So here you can see in purple the areas of already the current aquaculture farms. This is all the buffers. Sorry for the buffers of all the criteria we have conducted in the data that I've mentioned before. This is the in transparent gray areas that are under question by us. We need to find more details. So as you can see, I will display them. The ISO data as well. Just a minute to see. Okay, I'm ready, Mr. George.
So George was wondering, is there somebody online who wants to talk about what companies would like to see from the government in terms of legislation, or how would you want to repeat the question, George, again, just to?
Yes, by incentives I mean of course financial incentives, but also other facilitations that the government should provide in order to stimulate this offshore aquaculture development.
Do we have stakeholders from the private sector here? We see, or someone who likes to comment on that? Incentives for getting started on something like this. certainly if there has to be a clear legislation, as Paul was saying. It doesn't, companies don't say they don't want regulation, but they want to know what it is and that it's not going to change every year. I guess that's obvious one.
Yes,
But
a
what
robust
else? Yeah.
legal framework is of course a must.
Yeah. Anybody else? Incentives. So what would that, what could that look like? Some kind of a funding scheme maybe, or loans or low interest loans. I don't know. They do support the fishing sector now somehow, I guess. Do they? Dfmr, do you have a comment? Maybe they're not.
May I ask a technical question? Within the ports, do we have also the location of the fishing shelters as well?
Yes, it's supposed that we have mapped all ports, I guess, and fishing shelters.
Yes.
I see some hands raised, and also Konstantinos asked a question. Can we allow anyone to talk, or?
Yeah. Rana is open. I'm gonna activate now Konstantinos.
Maybe Konstantinos also has some information for us, how the Dfmr supports aquaculture, but it is in my understanding that agriculture and aquaculture sectors in Cyprus do have some support from the government, especially when that comes into if they have losses, or if they need some sustenance from the government. Costantino? For example, right now we know that with the COVID situation and the pandemic, the government will be providing grants and funding to aquaculture units that have been impacted from COVID. And this happens also not just in the pandemic, but in the cases that they would either have to, they can't sell their produce, or they have other losses due to weather, for example.
Konstantinos, we can't hear you. You need to get closer, I think, to the mic.
Unfortunately, I'm not aware of this kind of stuff, because I belong to another section in the Dfmr. Of course, we can send you or whatever you like to know, but I have to ask the colleagues here from the section of the aquaculture. I'm sorry, but I don't know these funding issues and all this, because I belong to the Marine Environment Division, so I'm not aware of this kind of thing. But I would like to ask you if you have any final suggestion for any area, for any suitable area for offshore aquaculture.
Yeah, well, I guess what we're looking at, if I can step in, Ioannis, correct me if I'm wrong, but
Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
Between those two black lines, and then I think we've kind of all dismissed, as you can see from the map, the western half because of the quite significant difference in waves, currents, and it's quite limited. So we're looking at this area between Larnaca and Limassol, but we have big questions about these gray areas that are shooting ranges and port areas, especially since there are already some farms in those areas. In some of the most dense places, we have farms. So maybe this is not as big of a deal as it looks on the map, but I would, you can see there the strip where the cursor is sort of left and right of that. I think at the moment, that's the most, I mean, somebody else can pitch in, but that's what I interpret this as. Yanni or someone else.
So just to explain, at this stage, we are collecting as much data as possible and putting it on the map. And we're trying not to exclude areas that we are open to some areas that we might dismiss early and a lot of opportunities. But also it will make it easier as it's getting very complex to dismiss some areas that are absolutely impossible to do right now due to technological or financial reasons. For example, very large depths, as Dan said, large waves and so on. The questions that we have also talking amongst us was this shooting range, for example, how restrictive is it? If the stakeholders, which means all of you here present, can suggest someone to talk to about this, the pipelines, for example, how thick are these lines in the sense of how restrictive are they, and so on. So to answer the question, we have not decided on specific areas. We are at the preliminary stage where we want to hear from you. So feel free to say anything that comes to mind that can help us.
I would like to add that in that area in Vasilikos Bay that you showed previously, that here in the middle, I think that you cannot consider it for new aquaculture because the projects that are planned for that area are to get the port bigger and to have new military bases and this kind of stuff. So most probably there will be some the need for some of the cages even to go away from there, the existing cages to leave the area. So it's not possible to suggest new aquaculture in this area of Vasilikos Bay there. So other areas should be suggested. About this shooting range, I think the Ministry of Defense is not very flexible, I would say, to accept the use of this area for any other purposes like aquaculture. It's a bit, it's the Ministry of Defense, so
yeah. So it's actively used, or somehow it's reserved. I mean, it's a real thing.
It's actively used, and they even warn the fishermen when they usually have the suits and everything. So they warn the fishermen to leave the area when the suits are planned and this kind of thing.
Do you know anything about those stripes that come out of the ports? Those seem a bit arbitrary. Some of them are full of shipping lanes. Some of them aren't, especially in the north by Ayanapa. And it's a big stripe of gray. And I don't know if this is a realistic thing, or does anybody know about that? For example, Lachi in Paphos is a huge thing. Not that we're necessarily looking there, but that's
these are the vessel corridors, the corridors of the ships going to the ports. These areas belong to the Cyprus Port Authority, and you have to take their opinion. And,
Okay.
from what I know, they are not very keen on changing this kind of stuff.
And maybe you have an idea who can tell us more about the plans for Vasilico. I mean, maybe it's been in the news. I've not been able to keep up, but that's a variety of ministries, I guess, isn't it?
Well, it's the Ministry of Energy, the main actor there, and of course the Ministry, the Department of Environment, who gives the permits for all these projects that are going to happen there. So it's the Ministry of Energy because it's the national national energy place of Cyprus there. And of course, the Department of Environment, which manages the whole area and gives the permits, the environmental permits, and all this stuff. So they have gathered everything, all information there.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Luis, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you. Just wondering whether you are planning to have, or whether you already did have consultation sessions with other stakeholders, such as small-scale fishermen or even polyvalent fishermen, so that you can exclude maybe, or consider excluding maybe areas that are important to them. And my other comment, suggestion would be, okay, I understand you've included layers on your map with regards to Natura 2000 areas, protected areas, Posidonia meadows, but also you should consider other areas that are also important and are known to hold important habitats and are known to the scientific community, also to the Dfmr. For example, I know of areas that we have proposed to be protected, but of course it's not an easy task, and they are being considered but are not there in your list, and they do fall in the range of 50 to 200 meters.
Yeah, this is one of the questions I would like to ask to the audience, actually, and Luis already suggested one. The stakeholders, if you have any stakeholders to suggest, any contacts you can provide. Of course, we talk to people in the fishing industry for sure. That's on our list to have a dedicated session with them. Any other stakeholders, please suggest them. And also this new, for example, the new protected areas or any new things that we haven't considered, we'll get, this is what we want to hear from you today. So thanks for the suggestion, and we'll talk more about this.
Oh, okay, yes, all right.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a long-term plan. I mean, so we need to think ahead, and Stephanos did a fantastic job of collecting all the data that we know of, but some of these are probably out of date already. So let alone it's going to change quite a lot, like Konstantinos said. So if we want this to be a place where somebody can, like a private entity could come and, or could decide to invest, they would want to know that this is a stable situation, or the places that we've identified are more or less, hopefully, more stable. In other words, they won't be converted tomorrow to a shipping, like a port zone or a shooting range or a cable route or a protected area. So yeah, this is really important to see in the future what's going to happen. I don't know how we're going to deal with that, except just keep asking. So thanks, Lewis. I think that's a really good point.
Public consultations would be one way, Dan, sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're the lucky ones. You're the first. But this 3-year, wait, how many years is this, Yanni? 3-year project?
It is 3 years, and we're nearly on the 6th, 7th month now. So we're in the very early stages, first year. So we still have 2 years to go.
Yeah,
so
and there's a public session planned, right? I think at some point.
Yeah, definitely by month 18 for sure. But we said one, but we should do more. There's a lot of information here that we need to collect.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I say something? I don't know if you have consulted with the Deputy Ministry of Shipping, because they are the competent authority about the spatial planning in Cyprus. So I know that they have already started to organize and planning the spatial planning of Cyprus. So it would be a good idea to consult with them to see what they have already done. I don't know if you have done it already or not.
We have not officially. We are talking to them through other projects, Maritime, for example, but we need to have a dedicated meeting with them indeed to ask about this. So I put this as a note to have a list of dedicated meetings with all these entities. So that's a very good suggestion.
I have to add something to clarify something, if I might say, that these were the excluded areas. For the spatial planning to be correct and valid, then we can put weight to other criteria, like how close is to shelters, how close is to other facilities where you can have storage houses. This is just the exclusion stage. Then afterwards, then we need to see other factors, how close the proximity to shelters and everything. And we're going to put some weights on this criteria, and we're going to perform the final stage or the later stage of the spatial planning.
Yes. Olympia has some comments. Maybe you can tell us verbally. Olympia, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I was
Hi.
just typing some hello. Thank you for a useful day of a day. It was a combination of ideas actually, and that was really unique. I actually have some comments, not questions, on according to the where you are planning to put the actual position of the Openc aquacultures. As Stephanos said, there are some restrictions and well spotted. There are some other restrictions that need to be considered as well, like where, as he mentioned, there are some communities or species that are being gathered into specific spaces or places, and due to the use of antibiotics or some other drugs, they should be also avoided to be placed at such position, unless you put some buffering, let's say, not nets, but technologies or green ideas to buffer the feces, the pollution that will be coming out from the cages. Also, you need to check tides and currents, because currents are way stronger in that sense from wind waves. I can give you a couple of data on those matters as well. And because you need to check the strength and the of the cages and the dispersion as well for the food and the pollution coming out from feces or anything from food, antibiotics and stuff. So you need to have a good dispersion on that. And you also want to have currents that will not affect the multiplication of your species. So we can discuss that in a later stage, of course. So that was my input.
That's very, very helpful, Olia. This is very interesting what you said, how these installations will affect other species. And these are considerations also. We're saying that this is a sustainable new industry that is not going to affect the maritime environment and all of that, but we need to hear from all you, the experts, to tell us the concerns, and if the concerns are looked into in depth, we can see what concerns are valid, what are not, and what we should do about some of the concerns. So some things will change when we put this new thing into the sea. Some species are going to maybe change their activity. I don't know. I'm not an expert on that. So that opens a whole range of questions, and we will have separate discussions with Luis, Olia, the Dfmr, and the Deputy Minister of Shipping. I wrote here, and I'm writing down some ideas now, and we will investigate them further. So keep them coming, like what I'm hearing. And Stephanos also mentioned before, we're going to exclude zones, and we're going to consider some zones, and then we're going to place some weights. So there's going to be some trade-offs here, and always in engineering we have trade-offs. So we're going to trade off something for something else. There's some things that we cannot trade off, like the impact to the environment. We cannot compromise that for economic profitability, but maybe some activities can change, for example, to allow this new industry to take place for the benefit of the society. So these are the weights that we would like to hear from you also. Any ideas on weights that could be placed on areas that could host this infrastructure, and you're not sure about them, basically. So it's not a yes or no. There's some weights here. So
yeah, we didn't go into much detail about all the other work packages, but those issues you brought up, a lot of them are addressed, but they haven't really progressed much in these first few months. So definitely like to hear more from you about that, Olympia, and those very, very valid comments.
Of course. We will arrange an online meeting, or due to COVID, we cannot meet in person, unfortunately, but anytime you request.
Ioannis, just a minute. Of course, in the later stage of this project, we're going to create that extra GIS tool with a decision system for the stakeholders, or no stakeholders, the people who want to fund to this aquaculture. We can provide them the tool that will display somehow these suggested areas, and then when they decide to locate to a point, then they will be able to see the effect of all these things that Olympia said to the area when that specific location is decided. Isn't it like that?
Exactly. We would like to have a decision support tool that is intelligent to a certain degree, provide where the stakeholders can actually provide input and maybe vote, or it can calculate and estimate and forecast maybe some impacts on what's going to happen. And of course, this is the intelligence part, I said, to some degree, because it's not within the scope of this project, but in combination with Maritime and other projects, we can create this intelligent platform that is going to do what we call intelligent maritime spatial planning. So have some forecasting models, for example, saying if we place an aquaculture here, what's going to happen to the environment surrounding it. And there's some work also by Osrp in Greece, where we can integrate these tools, already existing tools, into this platform.
I see, I think we've covered quite a lot. Fortunately, we will have other opportunities to talk with the stakeholders throughout the project, but I feel like we may be getting towards the end of the time. Does anyone have any last comments before we can pick this up again tomorrow? But
Dan, you were presenting about the multi-beamer before. That would be multi-beamer, if I'm not mistaken.
Not exactly, an echo sounder.
It's just an echo sounder, okay.
So it's single beam, but it's
a single beam. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But it's a wideband, so you're getting a small range of frequencies.
Okay.
You can detect particles and small objects. Basically like a fish finder, right? But it's a little bit more scientific.
Okay, and it doesn't go into specific depth, subsea depth.
It depends. So with that frequency, you have a certain range. The one I showed on the glider was, I think, 333 kilohertz.
Okay.
So there's a certain range, not too big. The ones on the vessels can be like 78 kilohertz, so they have a bigger range, but they don't resolve as many smaller particles. And of course, with the glider, you can actually go to the depth that you want, whereas with the ship, you only are limited to the range of the device.
Is there a possibility that this one beam can be converted into multi-beamer, or is not in your current plans?
You can have two, or you can have two transducers or two frequencies on one, or two sectors on one.
Okay.
But to get, if you're talking about getting ocean bathymetry or depth,
yeah,
it's a different problem because you need to know very precisely the position and the attitude of the platform that you're using. And so it's good for a ship, but for a glider, it's almost impossible to get enough information because it's not very accurate. We don't know exactly where it is when it's underwater.
Okay.
So you won't be able to make a map very accurately this way.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Great. So thanks a lot to everybody. Sorry a bit over time, but I think it was really, really good discussion. It was worthwhile. Thanks for those who stayed on to the end. Tomorrow we have a slightly different agenda. I hope that you can all make it. Again, 9 o'clock we start. You please register if you haven't on that link. And yeah, so thank you to everybody. And hope to see you tomorrow.